The beans were burning again. Bo McAllister kicked open the cookhouse door just as a plume of black smoke curled from the stovepipe, thick and bitter. Inside, Jed Harper stood with his arms crossed, lips pressed thin, while Jackson, who had drawn the short straw for cook duty, fumbled with a scorched skillet. "Don't say it," Bo warned, voice flat. "I wasn't gonna," Jed said, which was a lie. Bo crossed the room in 3 steps and yanked the pan off the heat. The char smell hit hard, burnt fat. Scorched coffee failure outside. A pot clattered against the side of the water barrel, and someone muttered something that sounded a hell of a lot like, "We ride at dawn." Bo turned. "If they walk before branding season, we're done." "Boys ain't wrong to be pissed," Jed said. 3 weeks of this. They're eating jerky meant for the dogs." Bo didn't answer. He stared at the pan like it owed him something, like if he looked long enough, it might turn into meat and potatoes. "Crow's letter came again," Jed added. "3rd time." Bo set the pan down. "I'll deal with Crow. You won't have to if the whole damn crew quits first." Bo stepped out onto the porch. The wind off the canyon was dry, snapping with grit, and it scraped the sweat off his neck like a warning. The hands were gathered around the trough, silent now, watching him, measuring. 3 left last week. 1 more had already packed. Jed followed him out. "Town's got a new cook. Girl runs the boarding house kitchen. Folks say she's good. No room for company tricks out here." Bo muttered. "She ain't company." Bo didn't move. "She's not asking to marry you," Jed said. "Just fry an egg without setting the barn on fire." Bo ran a hand down his jaw. His palm came away dusty. "Fine. Ride to Canyon. Offer her fair pay. But don't promise warm beds or civilized manners." Jed nodded. "Didn't think you'd notice if we lost either." As Jed mounted up and disappeared in a trail of sun-glared dust, Bo stayed rooted. The wind picked up. Far off, a hawk circled, searching, behind him. The cookhouse door hung crooked on 1 hinge. He'd built this ranch to keep people out, not invite them in. He didn't need a damn cook. He needed hands who could eat in silence, ride hard, and never ask questions about the room upstairs that still smelled like lavender and medicine. 3 nights later, Bo stood on the ridge, boot heel in dust, watching a wagon crest the rise. Jed drove. Beside him sat a figure in a pale blue bonnet, posture straight, hands in her lap. Bo's stomach tightened. The crew had gathered behind him like wolves drawn to scent. Even Jackson had washed. The wagon slowed. Bo stepped forward, hat in hand out of sheer reflex. The girl, no woman, lifted her chin. "Mr. Mallister," she said, voice smooth but firm. "I'm Clara Mae Dawson. I understand you're in need of a cook." She had eyes like river glass, blue, unreadable, not soft. Bo didn't like unreadable. "This ain't a town kitchen," he said. Clara Mae nodded once. "Neither is the Canyon boarding house. I've been feeding loggers, railmen, and the sheriff's deputies for 7 years. Still want to take a look at what you're walking into?" "I do." He led her to the cookhouse. Inside, the stove leaned like a drunk against the wall. The air stank of old grease. Clara scanned the room once. "This'll take a day to clean. The men expect supper. They can have bread and cold beans until tomorrow." Bo crossed his arms. "You're not in charge here, Miss Dawson." Clara turned to him fully. "If you wanted someone to say yes to everything, you should have hired a waitress, not a cook." Something flickered in her gaze. Bo didn't know what it was, but it was stronger than he expected. He stepped aside. Jed leaned in. "She's got grit," he said low. "Could be worse." Bo grunted. "Could be a disaster." But that night, after the men bedded down and the canyon settled into silence, he saw the light still on in the cookhouse. Clara was scrubbing the floor, sleeves rolled, apron streaked. Steam fogged the windows. A pan banged, a cupboard door slammed. She hadn't stopped. Bo turned away, but the scent reached him. Fresh yeast, salt, butter, and with it, something older. A smell he hadn't let himself think about since the day they buried his mother beneath the mesquite. He climbed the porch stairs slowly. Inside, the letter from Crow still lay unopened on the table, heavy like a rock. He left it there. Before dawn, Bo pushed the door open and froze. The long table was set. Coffee already poured, bacon sizzled. Clara stood at the stove, calm, focused like she'd been there forever. "Mornin'," she said without turning. "Food's hot." He poured himself a cup. The first sip made him pause. "Where'd you get real coffee?" he asked. "Same beans you already had, just took the bitterness out." She handed him a plate, eggs, ham, biscuits the color of gold. "You could have left," Bo said. "I'm not afraid of dirt," Clara replied. The men filed in, one by one, drawn by smell. Then silenced by sight, Jed sat first, murmured something Bo didn't catch, and smiled for the first time in a month. Outside, a rider crested the hill at full gallop. Bo stood fast. The man dismounted before the dust even settled, breath ragged. "Letter from Crow," he said, handing over an envelope damp with sweat. This time he wants an answer in person. Bo didn't open it. He looked at Clara, then back at the rider. "What else?" "He's not alone this time, brought a lawyer, and his sister." Clara went pale. Bo saw it, a flicker, barely. "Do you know her?" he asked. Clara's voice was low, but her words were clear. "I know her brother." Bo's jaw clenched. She didn't say more. She didn't need to. He'd seen fear before. This wasn't fear. This was something colder, something unfinished. "Get your horse," Bo said. "We're going to Canyon." The road to Canyon twisted through scrub and red dirt, the canyon walls rising and falling like old scars in the land. Bo rode ahead, silent except for the creak of his saddle and the faint jingle of his reins. Clara sat beside Jed in the wagon behind, her face turned toward the horizon but not seeing it. The sun hadn't crested fully, but sweat already lined Bo's collar. The silence wasn't peace, it was weight. They reached town by late morning. Canyon was no metropolis, just a scattering of buildings, a church with peeling paint, and dust that never quite settled. But it felt tighter today, watchful. Bo reined in at the livery stable. "Jed," he said, tossing the reins, "stay with the wagon." Jed caught them midair. "You sure? I'm not dragging a crew into a meeting I don't trust." Clara dismounted without help. She hadn't said a word since the rider brought Crow's name. Now, at the edge of Main Street, she finally spoke. "He'll twist this meeting into something it's not." Bo looked at her. "I won't let that happen." Her mouth twitched, almost a smile or maybe just disbelief. "Men like him don't care what you let." They crossed the street, boots thudding against cracked boards, and entered the narrow hallway of the Canyon Hotel. The clerk looked up from his newspaper, startled. "We're here to see Randall Crow," Bo said. The clerk blinked. "He's expecting you. Upstairs, private parlor." Of course he was. Bo followed Clara up the stairs, each step groaning under his weight. She didn't falter, but her shoulders had stiffened. He noticed everything. Crow stood when they entered. His smile was all teeth, his suit too fine for a man with dust on his boots. "Miss Dawson," he said warmly. "You're even more radiant than I remember." Bo stepped between them before she could answer. "Say what you came to say?" he said. Crow didn't flinch. He turned to pour coffee from a silver pot on the table. "I came to discuss the future, yours, hers, mine. We don't have a future in common, don't we?" Crow passed Bo a cup. Bo didn't take it. Crow shrugged and sipped his own. "My company's expanding. Railroads want steel. Steel needs fire. Fire needs water. You've got water, McAllister. A good flow off Silver Ridge. We want it. Not for sale." Crow raised a brow. "That wasn't the tone of your last letter." "I didn't send a last letter." "Then someone forged your signature." Crow smiled again. "Shocking." Bo's pulse kicked. Clara didn't react. That unsettled him more. "You dragged us here for a fake negotiation?" Bo asked. Crow waved a hand. No. I dragged you here for options. Your creek? Her boarding house? 2 loose ends I'd like tied." "You mean controlled?" Crow turned to Clara. "Your father agreed to my offer?" "Once I explained the strain of maintaining that old place, he saw reason." Clara's voice was ice. "My father's tired, not blind. You pressured him." Again, Crow stepped closer. Pressure is such a crude word. Bo shifted just enough that his coat moved. Crow noticed the revolver, nodded once. "No need for dramatics," he said. Clara took a breath. "You said your sister was here." "Julia's downstairs, meeting with the mayor's wife, tea and such." Bo narrowed his eyes. "Why bring her?" "To make it a family matter," Crow said, like it made sense. "Appearances matter in acquisitions." Bo hated the way the word acquisitions rolled off the man's tongue. Like lives were cattle to count and trade, Crow continued, too smoothly. "Sell the water rights. McAllister, lease the land if you must. We'll pay 4 times what it's worth. No legal mess, no headaches." "And Clara?" Crow smiled again. "Miss Dawson returns to her father's care. I ensure the boarding house survives the winter. Perhaps she reconsiders my offer of marriage." Bo didn't think. He moved. In 2 strides he stood toe to toe with Crow. "She's not yours to barter." Crow met his eyes and the smile dropped. "I wonder," he said softly, "how the town would respond to certain truths. You live alone, McAllister. A woman arrives, you let her into your home, your men talk. Rumors spread. Bo didn't blink. Let him. Crow glanced at Clara. And you, my dear? What are you now? A cook. A mistress. A squatter. Clara stepped forward before Bo could speak. Her voice was calm. I'm the reason your offer's falling apart. Crow's mouth opened, then shut, just for a second. Bo caught it. You've pushed too far. Bo said. Crow shrugged. I offer solutions. Others bring pride. He handed Bo a new envelope. Take it. Read it. Think. I don't read garbage. Bo said, crumpling it without looking. Crow's eyes cooled. Then I'll see you in court or worse. As they left, Clara didn't speak, not down the stairs, not past the lobby, not until the front door swung shut behind them and the wind hit her like a slap. I need to see my father, she said. Bo nodded. They reached the boarding house just as a freight cart rattled past, rattling every window in its frame. The old place looked like it had aged 10 years. One shutter hung loose. A porch board had split and been nailed back with a horseshoe. Inside, the air was stale, sour with old pipe smoke and something burnt. Virgil Dawson sat in the parlor, half asleep, one boot off. When Clara entered, he started. Penny, he said, old nickname slurred. You came? You sold him the house? Virgil sat up straighter. He said it was temporary. He'd hold the deed. Said it was just until? Until what? Virgil didn't answer. Bo looked around. The wallpaper peeled in strips. A framed photo hung crooked over the hearth. Clara at 15 in a stiff dress, not smiling. You know what he is? Clara said. I know we're out of coal and 2 weeks behind on food delivery. Bo turned to Clara. This place worth saving. Clara looked at her father, at the photograph, at the window Crow's men had shattered once back when it was called an accident. Yes, she said. Bo nodded. Then we fix it. She looked at him, surprised. You don't have to. Virgil looked between them. You two married? No, Clara said. Not yet, Bo added flat. She stared at him. The room felt small suddenly. Outside, a rider galloped past, fast, not local. Bo stepped onto the porch, scanned the road. The wind carried something metallic, not bells, not tools, brittle rings. Clara came to stand beside him. Crow won't wait long, she said. No, Bo agreed. She hesitated. You ever think maybe this isn't about the creek? She asked. He looked at her. I do now. A new envelope lay at their feet, no writer, just dust. Bo picked it up. The seal wasn't Crow's. This one was from Austin, from the governor's office. They're not just coming for water, Bo said. They're coming for the land itself. Bo didn't open the letter from Austin, not right away. He set it on the mantel that night and watched the flames in the fireplace crawl low, flickering like they were tired of burning. Clara was upstairs with her father, trying to coax him into sleep. Bo could hear their voices. Hers calm, his rough with regret. And it stirred something he'd long ago packed into the cold corner of his ribs. The seal on the envelope stared back at him, gold and black, wax-pressed clean government weight. He didn't trust it. By morning the wind had shifted. It carried heat from the south, sticky and restless, storm wind. Maybe, though the sky was clear. Clara came down with her sleeves rolled and hair tied back. No makeup, no airs. We should head back today, she said simply. Bo nodded. Jed's probably halfway to replacing me. She poured coffee into 2 tin mugs, handed him one. He sipped. It was strong, no sugar, no ceremony. I'll stay a few extra days, Clara said. Help my father get things settled, see what Rosita knows. Bo raised an eyebrow. Rosita? She's been helping watch the house. Keeps her ear to the ground. She hears things before anyone else in this town. I remember her, Bo said. Stitches like a surgeon. Glares like one too. Clara cracked the faintest smile. She likes you, which is rare. She doesn't like men on horses. Bo finished his coffee. Smart woman. They rode out by mid-morning, wagon creaking behind them. The sky stretched wide and white-hot. By the time they reached Palo Duro Ridge, Bo's shirt was stuck to his back, and the canyon had turned the color of firebrick. The ranch looked the same, but it felt different. Clara's absence was like a missing fence post, small, but every line sagged without it. Inside the bunkhouse, Jed was playing cards with 2 of the newer hands. The smell of fresh bread made Bo pause. She left instructions, Jed said, not looking up. Day by day notes, measured out flour like it was gunpowder. Told me if I mess it up, I sleep in the barn. Bo smirked. Sounds fair. He stepped into the cookhouse. It was clean, neat, alive. The garden out back had grown wild in just a week. Tomatoes, onions, sprigs of rosemary climbing toward the sun. He walked out there, knelt by the rows, and pressed his fingers to the soil, still damp. she'd watered before leaving. Inside, he finally unsealed the letter from Austin. The contents were brief, formal language, tight as a noose. It wasn't about Clara. It wasn't about Crow. It was about Silver Ridge. The mining company had filed a claim arguing that the waterway crossed into disputed public land. Citing old surveys, the state was investigating. No ruling yet. But if the claim held, Bo would lose water rights, and with them, the land. He folded the letter slow, like it might tear something inside him. Crow wasn't bluffing. He was using channels, lawyers, loopholes, men in cities who never set foot on dirt that bled when you cut it. Bo stared at the stove. The silence of the cookhouse was louder than gunfire. Later that night, Jed knocked on his door. "Got something you need to hear," he said. Bo followed him outside, past the pens toward the edge of the ridge. The wind had died down. Coyotes called in the distance, but the ranch itself held its breath. Jed handed him a folded newspaper. Amarillo print, Frumpe Kamrai Expascan Rai Sesquaus Abiupailan Garab Azimpahan Ilaragayon. Bo read it once, then again. No names, but clear enough. "Where'd this come from?" he asked. Jed scratched his chin. "Friend of Rosita's cousin sent it in. Papers looking for more." Bo's jaw clenched. "They'll come down harder now?" "Probably. But now people are watching. That changes things." "Not enough?" He looked down the ridge at the creek below. Running silver through black rock, it had always been his, since the day his father died with a bottle in hand and a deed in his coat. But paper didn't matter to men like Crow, only who could hold the line longest. The next morning, Bo rode out early. He traced the fence line, the outer edge of the claim, where Silver Ridge curled back through a narrow gully. There, wedged between two cottonwoods, was a stone marker, faded initials WM, his father's. Half buried now, moss creeping over it. He dismounted, dug with his hands until he reached the full marker. Behind it, hidden in the roots, a rusted tin box, inside two folded maps. Surveyor's sketches, original water lines, and a single note, yellowed but legible. "If you're reading this, you already know they'll come for it. Signed, William McAllister." Bo sat back, heart beating slow and heavy. The maps showed something Crow hadn't mentioned. Silver Ridge had shifted course 3 times in 20 years. The company's claim was based on outdated boundaries. Bo didn't smile. He didn't trust it yet, but for the first time in days, he felt something under his boots that wasn't slipping. When he returned to the house, the sun was nearly down. Jed met him on the porch. "You look like you dug up bones." "Maybe I did." Bo handed him the maps. Jed whistled low. "This gives you leverage." "Gives me time." "Same thing." Bo lit the lamp inside, stared at the flame. He didn't want to be a man who fought for dirt. He wanted to be a man who protected what mattered. And he was starting to learn the difference. That night, as coyotes howled again and the moon climbed pale and hollow, Bo wrote a single letter addressed to Clara Mae Dawson. Inside it, he included a copy of the map and 4 words. "You were right again." He sealed it. Jed would ride at first light. Bo sat by the fire, maps spread on the floor, Crow's fake deed beside them. The clock ticked. The house creaked. He listened to it all, like it might whisper what came next. Then, from the dark beyond the porch, a horse snorted, boots hit gravel. Someone knocked. Once, Bo stood slowly. When he opened the door, a man in a company vest stood there, clean-shaven, too clean for the canyon. He held out a telegram. Bo read it. Crow was coming back, with a lawyer and a woman. Bo didn't know the sister's name, but Clara did, and her hands had gone cold when she heard it. Rosita Vargas heard the knock before Clara did. She moved with quiet precision, setting her scissors down, wiping her fingers on her apron, and walking to the door without a word. Outside, a boy stood holding an envelope and a slice of dust pie for a face. "From Jed Harper," he said, and handed it over like it weighed more than it did. Rosita closed the door, bolted it, then turned. Clara was at the kitchen table, wrapping a cloth around a jar of salve for her father's shoulder. Her eyes flicked up, found Rosita's, then the envelope. "Bo," she asked, standing. Rosita nodded once. Clara opened the letter carefully, like it might fall apart. 2 things slid out. A folded map and a sheet of paper with 4 words. "You were right again." Clara stared at the handwriting, then at the lines of the map, the fading ink, the old water path marked in scratchy confidence. Rosita leaned over her shoulder. "That's original survey ink. I've seen it before." Clara exhaled. The creek shifted. "Which means Crow's claim is trash," Rosita said. "If the maps hold." Clara nodded. Her voice was quiet. "They'll try to bury this. They always do. They stood in silence for a moment. The air outside had turned thick, pressed down with heat. Rosita moved to the window, pushed aside the curtain with 2 fingers, and looked down the road. "There's talk," she said. Clara tilted her head. "Whose kind? Company kind. Crow's been seen with city folk, a woman, fancy dress. Doesn't belong here." Clara went still. "Did they say her name?" she asked, too calm. "No. Just that she looks like she thinks the dirt should move for her shoes." Clara walked to the sink, rinsed her hands, then dried them slowly, every movement careful. "I know who she is," she said. Rosita said nothing. She didn't need to. "I thought she stayed east," Clara continued. "But if she's here, it means Crow's pushing harder and deeper. You never told me what he did," Rosita said gently. Clara met her eyes. "That's because I never wanted to say it out loud." Rosita waited. "I was 16, Clara began. Mama had just passed. Papa was drinking more than he was working. Crow came around the boarding house with that same oily charm. Said he wanted to help. Said he admired how I kept the kitchen running." Rosita's jaw flexed. She didn't interrupt. "He started sending gifts, flowers, ribbons. I returned them all. Then he started showing up late, uninvited." Clara's fingers curled against the edge of the counter. "One night, he cornered me in the pantry, said if I married him, Papa's debts would vanish, and I'd never have to scrub another floor." Rosita's voice was sharp. "Did he touch you?" "No. I made sure he didn't." Clara looked away. "He slipped on a sack of flour and cracked his head on the shelf. I left him there. Locked the pantry door and told the sheriff he'd been snooping. Sheriff said nothing came of it. But Crow didn't stop. He just changed tactics: fires, broken windows, food shipments misplaced. Little things that stacked up made Papa desperate." Rosita crossed the room, put a hand on Clara's arm. "That's why you left." Clara nodded. "I thought the ranch would be safe, out of reach. You were wrong." Clara didn't flinch. "I know." Rosita released her, went to her sewing chair, and pulled open a drawer. Inside was a leather-bound book. She handed it over. "What's this?" "List of families Crow's gone after in the Panhandle. Landowners, small merchants, ranch wives who refused favors. They don't talk. But they came to me, one at a time." Clara flipped through pages. Names, dates, quiet notes of things gone missing. Properties lost, families uprooted. "This is enough to start a case," Clara whispered. "Not alone," Rosita said, "but with someone who has something to lose, maybe." "McAllister, maybe?" Clara exhaled. "He's not like Crow. I never said he was. But I can't be sure what he'll do when this gets uglier." Rosita gave her a look. "Then find out before it does." Later that night, Clara stood on the porch of the boarding house and watched the sky. The stars were slow to come. The heat lingered even after the sun fell, clinging to her skin like doubt. She thought of Beau's hands, caroused and still somehow careful when he passed her a coffee cup. She thought of his silence, the kind that meant thinking, not retreat. She didn't know what he'd do next, but she knew she couldn't wait to find out. Beau didn't sleep. He stood at the edge of the ranch, watching the moon slide low over the canyon. He held the original map in his left hand, Crow's fraudulent deed in the other. In the morning, Crow would arrive with his sister, with a lawyer, with whatever teeth he thought he needed. Beau had one shot to hold the line, and maybe one chance to make Clara stay, for good. But he wouldn't ask unless he knew she was choosing it for herself, not out of fear or convenience. He folded both maps, tucked them into his coat, and turned toward the house. Inside, the fire had burned low. The cookhouse was dark, but the scent of rosemary still lingered. He missed her already. Not the food, not the quiet competence. Her. At dawn, the dust rose on the horizon long before the riders appeared. Beau saddled up without speaking. Jed met him by the gate. "They're early," Jed said, squinting. "Or eager." Beau checked his revolver, then swung into the saddle. "Let's meet him head on." The 3 riders crested the hill, Crow in front, smug and polished, the lawyer behind, already fishing for documents, and then her. The woman was striking, gloves, dark riding skirt, curls pinned under a hat that probably cost more than Beau's horse, Julia Crow. Beau didn't miss the flicker in her expression when she saw the ranch house, too clean, too alive. She expected rot. Beau nudged his horse forward. Jed followed. They met at the edge of the gate. Crow grinned. "Beautiful day for business." Beau said nothing. Julia's voice cut through. "You must be McAllister?" "I am." "I've heard you've got a woman in your kitchen who doesn't know when to stay quiet." Bo smiled without warmth. Then you've heard wrong. She's quiet when it matters? Crow's eyes glinted. Let's go inside. No, Bo said. We'll talk out here. Julia's brows lifted. Sun's hot. Won't be long. Bo promised. He reached into his coat and pulled out the original map. Your claim's void. Creeks shifted. Your surveys are 20 years outdated. Crow laughed. The law doesn't favor sentiment. No, Bo agreed, but it still favors facts. The lawyer stepped forward. Reaching for the paper, Bo handed it to him. The man's eyes widened. Where did you get this? Bo ignored the question. File it. Fight it. Doesn't matter. The truth's out now. Julia watched him with interest. She said nothing, but Bo felt her studying him, not like a man, like a threat. If she's here, Clara whispered from the top of the ridge, watching through her spyglass. He's done pretending. Clara stood behind the cottonwood just above the ranch gate, her body still but her pulse running fast beneath her skin. The spyglass trembled only slightly in her grip. From here, she could see them clearly: Crow, the lawyer, and Julia, elegant as ever, dressed for court not canyon, and Bo, holding his ground with a piece of paper that glinted like truth in the sunlight, the original survey. Her heart thudded. He found it. She lowered the glass slowly. Rosita stood a few feet behind, arms crossed, eyes shaded by the wide brim of her hat. He's holding, Rosita said, like she didn't quite believe it. Clara nodded. For now. Below, the lawyer spoke fast, flipping pages, gesturing toward the hills like they were numbers on a ledger. Crow's face had gone tight, jaw clenched just behind his smile. Julia's mouth stayed a perfect line, but her hands, white-gloved and perfect, were folded too tightly in front of her. Clara knew that grip. Julia only held her hands like that when she was close to losing control. They weren't expecting resistance, Clara said. Especially not from someone like Bo, not used to men with backbones. Rosita muttered. Or women who don't run. Rosita tilted her head. Speaking of, I'm not leaving, Clara said. Below, Bo turned toward the house, gesturing them away from the gate. The meeting was ending. Rosita exhaled. We should get back. You'll want to be there when the next move hits. Clara's jaw tightened. It won't come from them. You think she's planning something separate. She doesn't make second trips without a plan. They moved quickly, back down the ridge trail, cutting behind the barn and looping toward the side porch. The moment they stepped inside the kitchen, Clara dropped the calm. She brought Julia to make me crack, she said. To remind me what power looks like in silken secrets. Rosita hung her shawl on the peg. It didn't work. Not yet. Bo came in through the mudroom door, dust clinging to his boots. His face was unreadable. She didn't say much, he said. But the lawyer didn't like the map at all. Clara crossed to the sink, filled a glass, drank half before turning. They'll pivot. Julia's here for character war, not land titles. Bo frowned. She doesn't know you? She doesn't need to. She'll go after my reputation, my past. My father's debts. Bo leaned against the doorframe. I've had rumors thrown at me since I was old enough to hold a shovel. I don't care what they say. You should, Clara said. Because it's not just about me. If they tarnish this ranch by association, they can argue instability, loss of credibility, paint you as erratic. And if that sticks, they'll have a case. Bo finished. Rosita watched them, both arms folded. So what's the play? Clara turned to her. We gather every person they've stepped on, every dirty trick, every whisper they've buried. Rosita raised an eyebrow. You want to go public? Clara nodded. Print, testimony affidavits, force the spotlight? Bo rubbed the back of his neck. You're talking about starting a war? No, Clara said. We're admitting it already started. The next day, Clara returned to town with Rosita. Bo stayed behind reluctantly to reinforce the ranch's boundaries. The air between him and Jed was tighter than usual. Jed had seen Crow's eyes during the standoff. He knew a storm was coming. Clara moved fast in Canyon. She met with the editor of the Amarillo Dispatch, handed over Rosita's notebook, and asked for protection for the sources. The editor, a wary man named Cal, with ink-stained fingers and suspicion in his voice, flipped through the pages for 10 minutes before saying, "This'll get you killed, or it'll make them run." "I'll take either," Clara replied. By sundown, they'd spoken to 3 more victims, 2 women, 1 store owner, and each gave their name for print. The shift was real. Fear, after years of silence, was cracking. But just as the sun dipped low, Clara felt it again. That old cold weight, the one she thought she'd buried. She turned the corner past the post office and stopped. Julia Crow stood outside the mayor's house, parasol tilted, lips pursed in a smile that wasn't warm at all. "I was wondering how long it would take you to crawl back," Julia said. Clara didn't flinch. "I walked, actually." Julia's eyes skimmed her. "Still dressing like a housemaid, and you still mistake lace for strength." Julia stepped closer. "We're offering you an exit, quiet, clean. Walk away from McAllister, recant what you've said, and we'll clear your father's debt." Clara's voice was low. "I'm not for sale. Everyone is, eventually." Clara stepped forward until they stood nearly chest to chest. "You think you're still the girl who scared me in boarding school," Clara said. "But you're not. You're just a mouthpiece now, for a man who can't keep his own hands clean." Julia's smile slipped. "You always were too proud for your station," she said. "No," Clara said. "I just stopped mistaking cruelty for power." She turned and walked away. She didn't look back. Back at the ranch, Bo waited. He sat on the porch until the moon crested, boots on the rail, rifle across his lap. He didn't expect Crow to try something so soon. But instinct didn't care about timetables. Sometime near midnight, a dog barked once, short and sharp. Bo was on his feet in seconds. Jed came from the barn, lantern swinging. "East fence," he said. "Two riders." They didn't try to hide. Bo's blood ran cold. He nodded. "Let's go." They rode out fast, no words wasted. When they reached the ridge line, they found what was left behind: a piece of barbed wire cut clean, and a tin star nailed to the post. Company mark. A message. Jed looked to Boo. "Think they'll come by day next time?" Boo shook his head. "They want us to strike first. Smart men don't." Boo stared into the dark. Smart men don't have something worth burning for. When Clara returned at dawn, Bo was waiting at the gate. She slid off her horse, eyes tired but bright. Dust clung to her skirts. She looked at him, and for a long second, neither of them said a word. Then Bo stepped forward. "Whatever happens next," he said, "we hold." Clara nodded. Together. In the distance, the church bell rang, not for prayer, but for blood. The bell rang once, low and long, echoing across canyon like a warning shot. Bo heard it from the fields. He turned, rake still in hand, the clang sitting wrong in his chest. Church bells didn't ring midweek unless something had gone sideways. He dropped the rake, wiped his hands on his jeans, and started toward the house. Clara was already stepping off the porch, shotgun in hand. Not raised but ready. Jed met them halfway. "Rosita just rode in," Jed said. "Said the sheriff's called an emergency assembly in town square. Said it's got Crow's stink on it." Bo's jaw tightened. "He's moving faster than I expected." "Too fast," Clara said. "We rattle?" Bo nodded once. "Then let's rattle back." They rode hard. By the time they reached Canyon's dusty main street, a crowd had already formed near the steps of the courthouse. Sheriff Winslow stood stiff, backed in front of the door, sweat already slick under his collar. Next to him, like a specter dressed in polished boots and black silk, stood Julia Crow. Her gaze swept the crowd like she owned it. Clara's grip on the reins didn't tighten, but her eyes sharpened. "Stay close," Bo murmured. Julia stepped forward and raised one hand, waiting for the murmurs to die. "Citizens of Canyon," she said, voice like syrup over broken glass. "We stand at a moment of clarity. For too long, this town has tolerated individuals who sow discord, spread lies, and threaten prosperity." Bo's eyes flicked to the edge of the square. Two company riders stood just off the street, rifles across their backs, watching. Effective immediately, Julia continued, "Our legal counsel, with cooperation from state authorities, is moving forward with a claim of slander and unlawful resistance against several parties interfering in Silver Ridge operations." A low wave of muttering rose. "Is that what we're calling it now? Resistance?" The crowd parted slightly as he moved. Clara stayed at his shoulder. Julia smiled. "Ah, Mr. McAllister. So glad you could join us." Bo didn't return the smile. "You've filed your claim, but the map says different. You lose the land, you lose the water. Not if the witnesses vanish." Julia said, still smiling. Clara stepped forward. "Are you threatening us in front of the sheriff?" Sheriff Winslow cleared his throat. "Miss Dawson, Miss Crow is well within her rights to." "To what?" Clara snapped. "To rewrite history. To drive people out of homes with contracts and shadows." Bo glanced at Winslow. "You know this isn't justice." The sheriff looked away. "I know it's bigger than me now." Julia stepped closer. "You've both had your fun, but the truth is this town needs jobs, order, money. Not another newspaper story from a woman with a grudge." Beau's voice was steady. The people in this square? They don't owe you a damn thing. You take their land, it won't stop here. Julia turned her gaze on the crowd. Then let them decide. Silence spread like frostbite. One by one, people looked away, shoes shuffled. A few stepped back. No one stepped forward. Beau felt the crack of it deep inside, not surprise, just the sting of confirmation. The town would watch. But it wouldn't fight. Julia's voice turned warm. There will be no arrests today, no blood, just decisions. She stepped back beside Winslow, nodded to her riders and turned. Beau didn't speak again until the square had emptied. They're giving us time, Clara said. Not mercy, Beau replied. She wants to finish this clean publicly. Jed approached face pale. They're holding a hearing, 2 days from now. Land arbitration. She's bringing witnesses. Clara looked at Beau. We need more than maps, we need people who'll speak. Beau exhaled hard. Then we ride. They split up that afternoon. Jed took the west trail, riding toward families who still owed nothing to Crow's company. Beau headed north to old ranchers. Men his father had drunk with, fought with, fenced with. Clara went east, back to Amarillo with Rosita and a copy of the Ledger. Her mission, the press. Her father, left in Rosita's care, barely woke as she packed. He muttered something in his sleep. Her mother's name, maybe. But didn't stir. She kissed his forehead and left. Beau found Henry Parks in the hills past Dry Mesa, stringing wire between fence posts on land no longer his. They sat on overturned buckets under a pecan tree, sipping bitter coffee, while Beau explained. Henry listened, chewing a toothpick down to nothing. I got kids, he said finally. What Crow did to us, it's buried. Talking now puts them at risk. He'll bury more if we let him win. Henry looked away. And if you lose? Beau didn't flinch. Then I'll lose standing up. A long pause, then Henry nodded once. I'll ride with you. I won't let him do to another family what he did to mine. Beau offered his hand. They shook. It was the first yes of the day. In Amarillo, Clara handed the Ledger to Cal at the dispatch. His eyes widened as he flipped through it. You realize publishing this puts a target on your back? I've had worse, Clara said. I'll print it, Cal said. But you better be ready for what comes next. Clara straightened. We're past ready. They left the office as the sun dropped low and the street lamps buzzed to life. Rosita leaned in. You should know. There's a wire? Clara stopped. From where? Beau, short message, just came in. They walked to the telegraph office. The clerk handed Clara the folded slip. Henry Parks testifying, Jed bringing 2 more. Stay sharp, she read it twice. It's starting? She said. Rosita nodded. Hope we're loud enough. Back at the ranch, Beau rode in late, mud spattered and shoulders aching. He barely had time to swing off the saddle when Jed came jogging out. Problem? Jed said. Big one. Beau's gut twisted. What now? Jed handed him a folded page, no signature, just a single sentence. If Clara speaks at that hearing, she'll never leave town alive. Beau read it twice, then handed it back. His voice was like stone. Tell her to come home. Jed blinked. You're calling her off? Beau turned to face the house. No, he said. I'm bringing her back so I can keep her alive. The war wasn't in the courtroom. It had already crossed their porch. Beau didn't wait for morning. He saddled Jed in the dark, tying his rifle low and slipping a second holster behind his back. Jed handed him a canteen and a tight, lipped nod. Neither of them said what they both knew. This ride wasn't just to bring Clara home. It was to intercept whatever, or whoever, might be riding toward her first. The threat had come unsigned, but the intent was clear. Julia wouldn't get her hands dirty, but Crow had men for that. Men who didn't leave bruises, only silence. Beau kicked off into the black, the moon barely a sliver over the ridge. The road to Amarillo was long, but he'd made it faster before. When fire chased him, when things mattered less than they did now, every hoofbeat punched through his ribs. By dawn, the orange haze of the city rose up. The streets were slow to stir. He didn't bother with pleasantries. He rode straight to Cal's office at the dispatch, tied Jed hard, and slammed the door open. Clara looked up from a desk in the back. Beau froze. She was safe, alive. But she was also pale, eyes ringed with sleepless worry, and in her hand, folded twice and creased to hell, was the same note. Jed had gotten the warning to her first. You shouldn't be here, he said, crossing the room. I could say the same, Clara said, standing. He reached her in 2 steps, took her hand and squeezed it once before letting go. They want you off the record, he said. Clara nodded. That's why I'm staying on it. Rosita stepped in from the back, arms crossed. We've doubled watches. No one comes through that door without us knowing. Bo turned to Cal. Did you print it? Cal lifted the front page, Clara's name in bold, the ledger cited. The testimony confirmed. It's already moving, Cal said. The town's split. Some are scared. Some are boiling mad. Bo turned back to Clara. The hearing's tomorrow. If they move tonight. They won't? She interrupted. Bo raised an eyebrow. Because you came, she said simply. And because they think I'm afraid. She walked to the window, looked down the street. You said it once. They only win if we bend. Bo didn't reply. He looked at her a long beat. Clara turned from the window. But I won't be stupid, we ride together. And we ride now. The road back to Silver Ridge was heavy with heat. Dust chased them like ghosts. They took the long way, off the main trail, watching ridge lines and shadowed tree lines. Twice, Rosita spotted riders in the distance, too far to see clearly, but too still to be drifters. Bo adjusted his route each time. By late afternoon, the ranch finally came into view. As they rode in, Henry Parks stepped off the porch. Behind him, 2 women and an older man nodded in greeting. We're staying through the hearing, Henry said. They'll need to look us in the eyes when they lie. Bo helped Clara down from her horse. Glad you came. Didn't come for you. Henry grunted. Came for the land. But his eyes softened a little. Inside the house, Rosita went straight to the kitchen, brewing coffee like it was a battle plan. Clara disappeared into her room. Reemerging minutes later in her old apron, sleeves rolled, Bo paused in the doorway. You sure this is the time for baking? Clara didn't look up from the dough. Yes, he smiled faintly. You're something else. She glanced at him. It's not for nerves. No. She shaped the bread into tight knots. It's to remind me that even when the whole damn world tries to erase you, feeding someone still matters. Bo didn't reply. He just watched her for a moment, then stepped away. That night, they fortified the ranch, every window checked, every lantern trimmed. Jed took first watch, rifle loaded and eyes sharp. Bo took second. Midway through the shift, he walked the perimeter, boots crunching dry gravel. The stars were out in full. Too many to count, too cold to trust. Then he heard it. A single snap of twig, soft, near the far fence. He froze. From the shadows, a voice called low. Name's Tiller. I work your South Ridge. Bo kept his hand near the holster. What do you want? Tiller stepped into view, slim, nervous. He held a folded cloth. They paid me to leave your gate open tonight. Bo's jaw tightened. And I didn't. Bo stared. But you should know, Tiller said. They've got 2 men watching the bluff past the east trail. If Clara leaves again, they'll take her. Bo stepped forward. Why tell me? Because Crow's got no loyalty, Tiller muttered. And you've got something worth keeping. He dropped the cloth at Bo's feet and left. Inside the cloth, a map of the ranch perimeter, with 2 marks in red. They were coming before the hearing. Bo walked back to the house, the map burning cold in his palm. Inside, he found Clara sitting alone at the table, teacup cooling untouched. They'll move tonight, he said. Clara didn't startle any. At least 2, maybe more. They'll aim to scare, not kill, not unless pushed. She nodded slowly. Then we push first? Bo hesitated. You sure? She looked up at him, something raw and steady in her eyes. I'm tired of running. I'd rather bleed on my own land than bow on theirs. They sat in silence a long moment. Then Bo reached into his coat, pulled out a slip of paper, and slid it to her. Clara unfolded it. It was his father's deed, signed, sealed, now joined with the old survey map proof of ownership. Bo met her gaze. No more secrets, not between us. Clara swallowed hard. Thank you. He stood, turned toward the door and paused. Tomorrow, he said, we make them look us in the eyes. She rose and followed him to the porch. Outside, the wind had picked up, carrying the scent of gun oil and dust. In the dark, across the far edge of the ranch, a flicker of light sparked once, then vanished. The fire wouldn't start in the courtroom. It would start with the sound of boots on gravel, just before dawn. They came just before dawn, no war cry, no gallop, just the soft crush of boots and the faint creak of leather straps, the kind of silence that says someone's made peace with doing something ugly. Bo spotted the first shadow slip past the far fence post, then another. He waited, rifle braced on the sill of the bunkhouse, breath held tight in his chest. Jed crouched beside him, shotgun low and steady. They're quiet, Jed whispered. Means they think they've already won. Across the ranch yard, Henry Parks ducked behind the chicken coop, rifle in hand, waiting for the signal. Clara and Rosita were holed up inside the main house, Doors bolted, lantern doused, one rifle on the upstairs landing, and one quiet prayer on Rosita's lips. The third figure moved between the barn and the well. Bo exhaled slow. That's enough. He stood up. The sound of his boots hitting the porch cut the stillness like a knife. Every shadow froze. I count 3, Bo called out, which is 2 more than you'll be able to drag back alive if you take another step. Silence. Then a voice. Male. Young. Southern drawl with something dead behind it. We're not here for you. Wrong answer, Bo said. You're on my land, with rifles, at my hour. From the main house, a window creaked open. Clara's voice rang clear. And if you think I'm still the girl who runs, you're about to learn otherwise. A figure moved, too fast. Jed fired. The first shot hit the dirt inches from the man's feet. He dropped his rifle. Bo fired next. Wide, but enough to tell the second man he wasn't invisible. Henry fired third. And then it was over. 3 rifles on the ground, 3 shadows, hands up, breathing hard, not brave anymore. Bo walked forward, took their weapons one by one. The leader was no older than 20, pale, sweat soaking through his collar. You work for Crow? Bo asked. I don't work for anybody. Bo stared. Then who paid you to crawl onto my land in the dark? No answer. He looked at the second man. You. The man spit to the side, eyes full of something colder than fear. You're already dead. Just don't know it yet. Bo didn't flinch. You ever say that to a man who walked away? The man blinked. Exactly, Bo said. He turned to Jed. Tie them. Leave them near the water trough. Sheriff can come collect when he grows a spine. Jed grunted. Might be waiting a while. As they bound the men, Rosita came out with a lantern. Clara followed. You all right? Bo asked. Clara nodded. They weren't expecting all of us to be ready. They expected one woman in a kitchen. Rosita said, their mistake. Bo looked to the horizon. Sun's coming. Herrings in 2 hours. Clara met his eyes. Then let's go give them something else to regret. The courthouse in Canyon was packed, men in work shirts, women in Sunday dresses, children clinging to boot hems. Everyone had shown up, not for justice, but for spectacle. People loved watching someone swing, even if they didn't know which side the rope hung from. Inside, the room was hotter than it had any right to be. The judge, a round man with gray sideburns and a nervous tick in his left eye, sat center. Julia Krause sat to his right. She was dressed in morning black today, strategic, sharp, and beside her, a stack of papers, ledgers and folded deeds waited like blades on a table. Bo and Clara entered side by side. The room stilled. Henry followed, then the 2 ranch wives, then the old shopkeeper, then Rosita. One by one, the witnesses took their seats on the left side of the room. Bo saw Julia's eyes narrow. Her voice, when she stood, was smooth as glass. Your Honor, we are here today to address the unlawful occupation of company land, the defamation of business practices, and the incitement of local unrest. She motioned to the men in the back. My legal counsel will present survey records, purchase documents, and employment logs proving both ownership and due process. The judge nodded. Very well. Defense. Bo stood. Clara joined him. No counsel, Bo said. Just the truth. The judge blinked. Mr. McAllister, this is highly irregular. So is being told you don't own the land your father died trying to keep? Bo said. He handed over the original survey. The judge adjusted his glasses, his hands stilled as he read. Next came the deed. Then Rosita's ledger. Then Henry's testimony. The room shifted. Murmurs, sharp breaths. One woman started to cry. Julia remained silent, still, but her left hand tightened on the edge of her chair. When Clara stepped up, she didn't raise her voice. She just told the truth about Crow's threats, about Julia's visit, about the note left under her door. She held up the page, unfolded, the handwriting clear. The judge stared at it longer than anything else. Julia rose. Anyone can write a threat. Not everyone can follow through, Clara said. But that's what they tried this morning. Bo nodded to Jed, who stepped outside moments later. The 3 men were marched in. Still tied, still sullen. The judge turned pale. Julia stood. This is a farce. The judge banged the gavel once. This is a reckoning. Silence, long, final. Then he cleared his throat. Based on the presented evidence, I declare the Crow Company's claim to Silver Ridge null and void. The original deed stands. Furthermore, charges of conspiracy, trespassing, and coercion will be investigated by the circuit court. He looked at Julia. And until then, I recommend you leave Canyon. Julia didn't move. Her voice was a whisper, but it cut sharp. This isn't over. Bo stepped forward. No, he said. But it's your turn to run. In the shadow of the courthouse steps, a lone rider waited, watching Clara like he'd been sent for something she hadn't yet paid for. The rider didn't move. He sat there at the edge of the courthouse square, just beyond the hitching rail, boots resting loose in the stirrups, hat dipped low over his eyes. The horse beneath him was rangy, dust-streaked, but still patient. Clara felt it before she saw it, that itch between her shoulders, the one that meant someone wasn't just looking, but waiting. She stepped off the courthouse steps slowly, letting the buzz of the crowd blur around her. Bo was 3 paces behind, speaking low with Jed and the judge, but Clara didn't call out. She walked toward the street, keeping her breath steady, her eyes up. The rider raised his head and smiled. Her feet stopped cold. She hadn't seen that face in nearly 10 years, but the smile hadn't changed. It was sharp, clean, and hollow as an empty coffin. "Hello, Clara." She swallowed once. "Eli?" "Eli Dawson, her brother." Bo stepped up beside her, sensing the shift. "Friend of yours?" he asked under his breath. Clara didn't look away. "Family." Eli dismounted in one slow swing. The crowd hadn't noticed him yet, too focused on the fallout from the hearing. That would change soon. "I heard you made yourself a name," Eli said. "Little sister doing big things, stirring up trouble like Daddy used to." Clara's fingers curled. "What are you doing here?" she asked. Eli shrugged. "Crow sent for me. Said there was a mess. Figured I'd come see what the fuss was about." Bo stiffened. "You working for him?" Eli turned to Bo like just noticing him. "And you're the cowboy she's been warming bread for." Bo didn't answer. Eli smiled wider. "Relax, I'm not here to shoot up the place, just watching." "That's a long ride for a spectator," Clara said. "You know me," Eli replied. "Never miss a good fire." He tipped his hat, turned, and mounted again. "Just letting you know I'm around, in case things start to fall apart." He rode off without another word, disappearing down the alley like a man who knew where every shadow led. Bo turned to Clara. "Why didn't you tell me you had a brother?" She didn't answer right away, because explaining Eli was like trying to draw a clean line through a snake. "We're blood," she said finally. "Not kin?" Bo didn't press. But he didn't look away either. Back at the ranch, the mood was split in half. The hearing was a win, but the kind that carried consequences. Crow hadn't been arrested, Julia hadn't been humbled, and Ali's reappearance turned every door creak and wind gust into a question mark. Rosita made stew thick with garlic and root vegetables. No one ate much. That night, Bo walked the property again. He didn't sleep, not well. Not with a Dawson he didn't trust riding loose. When he returned to the porch near midnight, Clara was waiting. She held a glass of whiskey, her second, maybe third. "He always knew how to show up at the worst time," she said, not looking at Bo. "First time was when Mama got sick. Second was after the bank came for the house." Bo sat down beside her. "He ran off with the last of her money," she continued. "Left me and Daddy to bury her alone." Bo didn't interrupt. "He's a liar, Bo, but worse than that, he makes you want to believe him, even when you know better." Bo took the glass from her hand, set it down. "Then we don't believe him." Clara smiled, tired. "Simple as that." "No," Bo said. "But it's a start." At first light, a rider came, not Ally. This one wore a deputy badge and carried a fresh warrant. "For Clara Dawson," he said, loud enough for everyone on the porch to hear. "Charged with fraud, obstruction, and unlawful tampering with business documents." Bo stood. "You're out of your depth," he warned. The deputy looked nervous. "I'm just doing what the circuit court signed." Clara stepped forward. "I'll go," she said. "Alone." Bo turned to her. "The hell you will. If I run, I look guilty," she said. "If I face it head on, we control the narrative." Bo clenched his jaw. "It's bait." "I know," Clara said. She looked at him, her voice low. "But if I don't go, they'll come back with more than paper." Bo cursed under his breath, then nodded. "We ride with you. Jed, too." Clara looked at the deputy. "Give me 1 hour." He nodded. She packed light, left the ledger. Before she mounted, she turned to Rosita. "If I don't come back, burn everything but the land." Rosita didn't argue, didn't cry, just said, "Don't make me." The jailhouse in Canyon was clean, but cold, too new to have grit, too old to feel safe. Clara sat alone in a cell, hands folded in her lap. Bo paced outside, fists tucked into his coat. Jed leaned against the doorframe. "This stinks." Bo nodded. "It's not about the charges. It's the message." "What now?" Bo stared through the bars. "Now we find out who wrote the damn order." That night, the town went quiet early, too quiet. Bo didn't like it. He walked to the boarding house where the circuit judge was staying. No lights. No answer. Inside, he found the clerk tied to a chair, gagged. Judge Bennett was gone, kidnapped, or worse. Bo untied the clerk, who sputtered. They came in the back, said if anyone talked, they'd burn the place. Bo's heart dropped like a stone. They're not fighting fair anymore. Jed said from the door. Bo looked out at the empty street. They never were. From her cell, Clara heard the sound of boots approaching. And this time, they weren't the deputies. The boots echoed down the corridor, slow and deliberate, each step sharper than the last. Clara stood before she knew it, spine straight, breath caught halfway between a curse and a prayer. The lock on her cell door rattled once, just a test, not a key, and then the footsteps stopped. Evening. Little sister. He leaned into the bars, grin spread wide. But his eyes stayed flat, no warmth, no remorse, just calculation. I heard you got yourself locked up again, he said, voice syrup, slick. Didn't think you'd dirty your boots coming all this way. Clara replied. Ely glanced down the hallway, then pulled something from his coat, a ring of keys. He dangled them just out of reach. Seems the deputy's got a gambling habit, paid off the tab, borrowed these for a spell. What do you want? She asked. Stepping back, he unlocked the door, slow and quiet, and pushed it open. You. Clara didn't move. Eli stepped inside, closed the door behind him. Your lucky crow still wants you breathing, he said. If it were up to me. He let that hang. Clara's jaw tightened. If you came to scare me, you're wasting your time. I came to make you see reason, he said. Crow's not going away. Julia's licking her wounds, sure, but the company's still got money, men, and leverage. You walk out of here tonight with me, you disappear for a few months, this all goes away, land stays in your name, no more charges, no more noise. And in return, you drop the papers, the testimony, the press campaign, you stop making noise. Clara stared. I'm offering you peace, he said. No, she said. You're offering me silence. Eli's face hardened. It's the best deal you'll get. I'd rather hang than owe you a breath, she said. He moved fast then, too fast, and in a blink, Clara was slammed back against the wall, the keys falling with a clatter. Eli's forearm pressed her throat. You don't get it, do you? He hissed. This isn't about you winning, it's about making sure no one like you ever tries again. Clara struggled, gritting her teeth, forcing her voice past his arm. You always were your father's son? He paused. Just enough. She drove her knee up hard into his gut. He staggered back, and she lunged for the keys, grabbing them and backing toward the door. I'm not running, she said. But I'm done letting you close. Ely wiped his mouth, smiling through the pain. You'll regret this. Clara locked the cell behind her. No, she said. You will. Boo and Jed found her 10 minutes later, bruised but standing. Rifle in hand? Bo asked. Gone, she said. But not far. Jed looked at the busted lock. He try anything? He offered me a deal. Clara said. This kind of peace. Bo's face darkened. We'll find him, no. Clara said. We make him come to us. They returned to Silver Ridge that night. Under the cover of cloud and silence, Bo didn't like leaving town unguarded, but there was no law left in Canyon to trust. The judge was still missing, the sheriff was silent, and Crow's reach was longer than anyone thought. Back at the ranch, Rosita had kept the fire going. The air was thick with coffee and tension. What now? Jed asked. Clara unfolded a paper from her coat, the signed testimony of every witness who'd stood with them. This goes to Austin, she said. Circuit Court, federal filing. We take this above Crow's-it? Rosita asked. Bo looked up. Me. Clara shook her head. You're a target now? Exactly, he said. Let them chase me while the real message rides safe. She stared at him, torn between fury and fear. Bo leaned in close, voice low. Die. If this is going to end, one of us has to draw the fire. She reached for his hand, held it tight. Come back, she said. No matter what. Bo nodded once. I will. The next morning, Bo left before dawn. Clara stood at the gate, watching until he disappeared into the haze. The sound of his horse faded like a heartbeat slipping underwater. Think he'll make it? Jed asked. Clara didn't look away. He has to. At noon, the storm broke, not from the sky, but from the South Ridge. Crow's riders, 6 of them. They didn't knock. They rode straight to the barn and set it ablaze. Rosita saw it first, shouted. Clara grabbed her rifle. Henry and Jed ran for the livestock. The fire rose fast, too fast, but this time they were ready. Clara mounted her horse bareback, hair tied tight, bandana over her face, she rode into the smoke. Rifle slung and fire in her eyes, 2 riders broke left, flanking her. She fired once, missed. Jed shot one from the hayloft. The rider crumpled. Another aimed for the chicken coop. Rosita stepped out and threw a lantern. Lit, it hit his saddle. Burst, he screamed, dropped, rolled. Clara caught up to the last one as he turned tail, riding hard. She leveled her rifle, then stopped. It was Eli. He turned in the saddle, grinning, blood on his lip. He shouted. "I don't think," Clara said. "I know." He laughed. "You're too late." And then he was gone, disappearing into the smoke. Clara didn't chase. She turned back toward the barn, flames licking high, smoke curling skyward. The cattle were safe. The coop was scorched, the shed gone. But no one was dead, not yet. She climbed down, coughing. Jed met her, panting. "That wasn't a raid," he said. "No," Clara said, voice hoarse. It was a warning. Rosita stepped out from the house. "They know Bo's gone." Clara nodded. "We've got until morning." And when morning came, it didn't bring sunlight. It brought blood. Morning blood into the valley like a wound left open. Clara stood on the porch, rifle in hand, eyes fixed on the tree line where the smoke had drifted away hours before. Her lungs still burned from the fire, her clothes stank of ash and sweat, but her stance didn't falter. Rosita stepped out beside her, coffee mug clenched tight. "They'll come before noon," she said. "Like cowards do. When the sun's high and your guard is low?" Clara nodded. "Let's make sure they don't find it that way." Jed emerged next, his shirt singed, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "Henry and I set traps by the creek, nothing lethal. Just enough to rattle their horses and piss him off." "Good," Clara said. Inside, Henry polished a rifle that looked older than the ranch itself. He didn't say much. He never did. But his silence carried weight. They didn't ask if the riders would return. They only wondered how many. By mid-morning, the wind shifted, then came the sound. Far off, hollow at first, hooves. 8 riders. Clara could count them without binoculars now. They rode in a loose V formation, dust kicking up behind them like the tail of a dying storm. Julia Crow wasn't with them, but Illy was. At the center, upright in the saddle, no hat, no smile. He wasn't playing this time. Clara turned to Rosita and Jed. "We make a wall, hold them here. They don't cross this fence unless it's over our backs." Jed loaded a shell into the chamber. "Guess it's time." "Guess so," Clara said. The riders stopped 20 yards out. One called ahead, "Clara Dawson, you got no judge, no writ, you got nothing." Clara stepped down from the porch. She crossed the dirt, slow and sure, and stopped at the center of the yard, where her father used to smoke his pipe in the evenings. "You're wrong," she said. "I've got land, I've got people, and I've got the truth." The lead rider laughed. "Truth don't win out here." "No," Clara said. "But bullets sure do." And then she fired. The first shot clipped the lead rider's shoulder. He screamed and dropped his rifle. Chaos exploded. Jed took down the second rider before he reached the fence. Henry fired from the house, dropping another who'd broken left. Rosita's lantern trick lit one more horse on fire. Clara ducked behind the water trough, reloaded. Ely came straight at her. He didn't fire. He rode, pistol holstered, hand on the horn. He jumped the fence, landed hard, rolled from the saddle, and tackled her into the dirt. They struggled in the dust, Clara elbowing, kicking, spitting grit. Ely was stronger, but she was faster. She need him again? Same spot. He grunted, loosened. She shoved him back and leveled the rifle. He froze. "You gonna shoot your own blood?" He panted. "You ain't my blood anymore." A shadow moved behind her. Eli smirked. "Too slow," he whispered. But the bullet didn't come. Instead, a rider behind Clara screamed. Rosita had gotten him first. Ely took the moment to lunge again. They rolled, wrestled. Clara's rifle flew. Her hand found the broken whiskey bottle in the dirt. She swung hard. The glass cracked against Ellie's temple. He collapsed, groaning. Jed ran to her side. "You all right?" Clara nodded, panting. "Where's the rest?" "They're pulling back. We broke them?" Clara stood slowly. Her hands were shaking. Ely moaned on the ground, blood trickling into the dust. She looked down at him. "You think it's over?" He mumbled. "Julia's not done." Clara leaned in. "Neither am I." She turned to Jed. "Tie him, lock him in the cellar." By sundown, the yard was quiet again. 1 dead, 3 wounded, the rest scattered. Rosita stitched Henry's arm. Jed buried the body behind the barn. Clara cleaned her rifle in silence. Then a sound, hoofbeats, again. But different this time. 1 rider. They all stepped out, tense, tired, guns raised. The rider came closer, then closer, and then they saw him, Bo, covered in road dust, his coat torn, a blood smear on his cheek, but alive. Clara ran first. She met him before he dismounted, grabbed him around the waist, buried her face in his chest. Bo held her tight, not saying a word at first. Jed clapped his shoulder. "Thought you were done for?" "Almost," Bo said. "They tried to cut me off near Highwater Ridge, 2 riders. Left one in a ditch, the others running scared." Clara pulled back. "Did it get through?" Bo nodded. "Straight into Judge Harmon's hands." Rosita exhaled. "Then it's on record. Stamped, signed, delivered." They stood in silence for a moment. Bo looked around at the scorched wood, the blood-stained dirt. "I missed a hell of a party." "You always did show up after cleanup." Bo grew serious. "Julia won't take this lying down. She'll send more. Or worse." "I know," Clara said. "But this time we're ready." Bo looked her in the eye. "We're gonna finish this. All of it. Because if you want to kill a snake, you don't just scare it. You go for the head." Bo's words hung in the air like smoke after a shot. "If you want to kill a snake, you don't just scare it. You go for the head?" Clara didn't blink. Neither did Rosita, nor Jed. They all knew who the head was, Julia Crow. And they all knew where she'd be, not hiding. Julia would be waiting behind glass windows and clean fingernails in her canyon estate, sipping expensive whiskey while men died for her pride. She'd count on her name, her money, and the fear she'd bought over the years to shield her from consequence. But not this time. That night, they made a plan, a hard one, a risky one. But one that, if it worked, would end things for good. "We ride at first light," Bo said. The sun rose red. Bo, Clara, Jed, and Rosita rode together, leaving Henry behind to guard the ranch. They carried no flag, no legal summons, just the truth and iron. Bo wore his father's coat. Clara carried the testimony. Jed had 2 rifles across his back, and Rosita, with her face half covered by a scarf, rode like she'd been waiting her whole life for this kind of fight. Canyon was quieter than expected. Word had spread, no doubt. The Crows were losing ground. But the house still stood tall at the edge of town, 3 stories, white stone, iron gate. Bo dismounted first. No sense knocking. He drew his revolver and walked straight to the gate. 2 guards stepped out from the porch, hands on their hips. "No one sees Mrs. Crow without an appointment," one said. Clara stepped forward, pulled the court document from her saddlebag, and held it up. "You can read, can't you?" The guard snorted. Then Bo shot the lantern above their heads, glass shattering down between them. "Now we're done with words," Bo said. "Move." They did. Inside, the air smelled like polished wood and old money. Everything was too clean, too still. Julia waited in the parlor. She stood behind a long table lined with ledgers, maps, and a half-drunk glass of brandy. "Clara," she said coolly, "I was wondering when you'd come begging." Clara didn't answer. Bo spoke instead. "Your men are either dead or running. The judge has your signature on a dozen illegal contracts. You're out of time." Julia picked up her glass, took a sip, and smiled. "You think the law scares me? I own the law in this town." Clara set the testimony down on the table. "Not anymore." Julia's gaze narrowed. "I gave you a chance to walk away, and I gave you a chance to do the right thing," Clara said. "We both know how that went." Rosita stepped forward. "We're not here for a negotiation." Julia looked her up and down. "I don't speak with staff." Rosita's fist landed fast. The glass shattered on the ground before Julia hit it. Bo stepped between them before things escalated. "Your company's over," he said. "Crow Holdings goes into investigation today. Your accounts are frozen. Your land claims revoked." Julia stood bleeding from her lip, eyes like coals. "You think you've won?" "No," Clara said calm. "We know we have." Then Julia smiled. Not a wounded smile, not defeated, but something colder. "You don't understand the shape of this game," she said softly. "Do you think I ever cared about the land? About your little ranch?" She stepped forward, eyes locked on Clara. "This was never about property, it was about power. And now you've embarrassed me." Clara didn't budge. "You did that yourself? You still have a brother in my custody?" Julia said. Bo's jaw clenched. "He's not my brother anymore," Clara said. "And if you think using him's going to buy you anything, I'm not using him." Julia interrupted. "He volunteered." That landed like a punch. Clara blinked. Julia smiled again, slow and cruel. "Eli's not just working for me. He's been feeding me your every move." Jed stepped forward. "That's a lie." "No," Bo said. "It's not." He looked at Clara. "The ambush, the fire, how they knew I was gone." Clara's heart sank. He was always one step ahead. Julia walked to the window. He left this morning. Said if you showed up here, he had something to finish back at Silver Ridge. Beau's blood ran cold. Henry was alone. They rode like hell, back toward the ranch, past the ridges and trails now scarred with memories. Dust clawed at their faces. Rosita didn't speak. Jed loaded shells as they galloped. Beau felt the dread rising with every hoofbeat. Please let us be wrong. Please let him be late. But they knew better. When the ranch came into view, the barn was burning again. No smoke this time. Just fire. Full, roaring fire. And something worse. A single horse tied to the gate. Beau jumped off before his mount stopped moving. Henry, he shouted, running for the house. The door was open. Inside, Henry lay slumped in the kitchen chair, alive, breathing, but beaten bad. Clara dropped beside him. Henry, what happened? Henry groaned, one eye swollen shut. He was looking for the deed, the original. Tore up your room, thought I had it. Beau looked to Jed. He's gone. Jed said. Road north. Clara stood slowly, face pale. He's going to the old boundary marker, she said. The one from our father's land survey. Beau frowned. Why? To destroy it, she said. If the marker's gone, it throws everything into question again. The line. The ownership. It all resets. Jed cursed. We'll never prove anything in court. Clara turned to Beau. This ends tonight. He nodded, and without another word, they mounted again, riding into the dusk, toward the place where it all began. There at the edge of the land their father died for, Eli Dawson waited with fire in one hand and blood in the other. The old boundary marker stood like a forgotten grave at the edge of Silver Ridge, weather-worn, half-buried, its wooden post split down the center with the initials J.D. carved deep. Their father. Eli stood over it with a torch in one hand and a pistol in the other. The firelight danced across his face, casting shadows where once there was charm. Now there was only rage, hollow, bitter, and absolute. The wind caught the flame's edge, bending it sideways, but he didn't flinch. Clara reined in 20 yards out. Beau and Jed flanked her. Rosita stayed just behind, rifle low but ready. Eli, Clara called. He didn't turn, just stared at the marker like it had cursed him. I should have burned this land years ago, he said, voice dry. Watched it all turn to ash. Clara dismounted, slow. Her boots hit the earth with weight. You burned that post, she said. And you don't just erase property lines. You erase every truth our father ever died trying to keep. Eli turned now. His smile was back, but cracked. He died broke, alone, chained to a patch of dirt that never loved him back. He died free. Clara snapped. Eli shook his head. No, Clara. He died clinging to something that couldn't be saved, just like you. Beau stepped up. You destroy that marker, you kill your own name. Eli raised the pistol. I already did that a long time ago. The torch in his other hand dipped toward the base of the post. Jed moved. Eli fired. The bullet struck Jed's leg, knocking him sideways. Beau returned fire, grazing Eli's shoulder. The torch hit the ground, flames sputtering. Clara rushed forward, tackling Eli to the dirt. They rolled, fists flying, hands grasping at the pistol. The fire licked closer to the post. Beau grabbed the torch and stomped it out. Rosita ran to Jed, dragging him back toward cover. Eli shoved Clara off and scrambled for the pistol. She kicked it away, grabbed a rock, and swung. It cracked against his temple. He blawed. Again. Just like before, gasped, vision blurry, rage spinning into something darker, something desperate. Clara, he whispered. You don't get it. I wasn't trying to destroy it. I was trying to end it, all of it. She stood over him, breathing hard. By betraying us? By selling out your family. No, he said, coughing. By becoming something that survives you and Beau. You fight like ghosts. I adapted. You sold your soul, she said. For what? A paycheck. Julia's approval? For control. Eli spat. I spent my life watching this place take from us, first Mama, then everything else. I wanted to own something that couldn't be taken. And did you? Eli looked up at her, eyes swimming with something that wasn't quite guilt. I owned fear, he said, but it don't feel like much now. Beau stepped up behind her. Is it over? He asked. Clara looked down at her brother, the last remaining wound from a family broken long ago. She could finish it here, pull the trigger, or let the courts drag him off like trash, but she didn't. Instead, she said, you'll live. Eli blinked. You'll live with it, with what you became, with who you became. Beau cuffed him and pulled him to his feet. We'll take him to Austin, let them sort the legal end. Clara turned toward the marker. The initials were still visible, Still standing, Rosita joined her, nodding. Jed limped up with a bandaged leg, pale but grinning. You got a real talent for ruining men's faces, Clara. She almost smiled. They made camp under the stars that night, just beyond the ridge. Ellie was bound, quiet. Not speaking, Clara sat apart from the others, staring at the fire. Bo walked over and handed her a canteen. You all right? She nodded. Just thinking. He sat beside her. About what? About the way it ends, she said. We came out here for truth, for land, for something real, and what we found was fire, betrayal, and blood. Bo looked at the flames. But we also found each other. She looked at him now, eyes raw. Honest. I didn't expect to, she said. I didn't plan to, he replied. Silence again. Then Clara asked, Do you believe it's really over? Bo didn't answer right away. The land's ours again, he said finally. But peace. That's something we'll have to keep choosing. Clara leaned into his shoulder. The fire crackled. The dawn would come soon, and with it, the road back to town, to the trial, to a world trying to catch up to the one they'd just blood to protect. But for now, there was stillness. For now, there was them, and far off, in a canyon office lined with polished wood, Julia Crow poured herself one last drink and made one last call. Julia Crow's office had never been silent, not truly. Even in stillness it hummed, the weight of old deals, dead men, and names bought and buried. The curtains were drawn tight against the morning sun, casting long shadows across the floor where her heels clicked softly. She poured her bourbon with a hand that didn't shake. Not yet. Across from her, the telephone sat heavy on the desk. The call had already been made, to a man in Austin, to a judge with debts, to a last chance. But this time, no one answered. Not because they wouldn't. Because they couldn't. 2 weeks later, Clara stood outside the state courthouse in Austin, wind tugging at the hem of her coat. The trial had ended. The ruling was final. Crow Holdings dissolved, fraud confirmed, land restored. Eli Dawson was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for obstruction, bribery, and conspiracy to commit arson. He didn't say a word when the verdict was read. Julia Crow never showed. Her estate had been emptied, her accounts seized. Some said she fled south of the border. Some said she vanished into the desert. Clara didn't care. The power was gone. The name was hollow. The storm was over. But the air still smelled like thunder. Back at Silver Ridge, Bo fixed the fence line, one post at a time. It was spring now. The ground thawed. The cattle were healthy. Jed's limp had faded into a swagger. Rosita replanted the herb garden out front, humming again when she cooked. And Henry, he finally let Clara repaint the kitchen. I'm gonna miss that dent in the wall, he said, pointing at the spot where Eli's boot had struck during the last fight. Clara smiled. Then I'll leave it there. She didn't paint over the initials at the baseboard either. J. D. in small, careful scrawl, carved by a father they both remembered differently, but loved the same. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the ridgeline and spilled gold over the fields, Bo found Clara at the old boundary marker. She was sitting in the grass, boots off, toes in the dirt. He sat beside her without speaking. They watched the light fade. I used to think land was just land, she said. Fences, water, soil, something to own or lose. And now? He asked. She dug her fingers into the ground. Now I think it's memory, and memory needs caretakers. Bo looked at her hands, covered in dust, and smiled. We've got work then. They sat quiet for a while, then she turned to him. I want to build something real here, Bo. Not just survive, not just hold on. We build it. Together. Always. The ranch came back slowly, not in grand gestures but in quiet moments. A new calf born under starlight, a neighbor stopping by with fresh peaches and no fear, a letter from the courthouse confirming the land grant had been officially reissued. This time, in Clara Dawson's name alone. She hung it in the hallway. Below it, a photo of her parents. Beside it, one of Bo. A third frame sat empty, for whatever came next. One night as summer approached, Clara hosted a supper, nothing fancy. Just stew, cornbread, and coffee strong enough to cut fence wire. Rosita told stories in Spanish. Henry laughed so hard he spilled his plate. Jed played harmonica badly. Bo leaned in close, whispered something that made Clara smile so wide her cheeks ached. After the guests left and the porch quieted, she sat beside him on the swing. Do you think it lasts? This? Peace, home, love? Bo thought for a long moment. Only if we keep choosing it. Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. I will. In the days that followed, no telegrams came, no more riders. No more fire, just the wind, the sun, and the sound of something new growing in old soil. The ranch didn't forget what it had endured, but it forgave, and so did Clara, not quickly, not completely, but enough to breathe again, enough to look at the hills and see a future instead of a battlefield. In the end, this story wasn't about land, not really. It was about what you fight for when everything else is gone. It was about the kind of courage that doesn't wear a badge or carry a gun, but builds a fence, plants a seed, sets a table for one more plate. It was about knowing that healing doesn't come in triumph, but in choosing, every day, to live without bitterness. And in the quiet, the land listened, because some stories don't end with a gunshot. Some end with a breath, a promise, and the sound of a woman's voice, soft and certain, saying, "We're home." The ranch learned new rhythms. Mornings started before the sun, not from urgency but habit. Coffee boiled down until it went quiet. Boots lined by the door because someone always forgot to put them away. The south fence held now. Bo fixed it once a season, not because it failed, but because he liked knowing where the line stood. Clara kept the books at the kitchen table, pencil smudges on her fingers, a ledger beside a folded dish towel that never quite left its place. People in Canyon stopped calling ahead before they came by. They just showed up, sometimes with peaches, sometimes with questions, sometimes with nothing at all. The house changed in small ways. A second mug always waiting on the stove. A coat on the back of Clara's chair that wasn't hers. When someone asked when it happened, she shrugged and said, "Between winters," which was true enough. No rings announced, just a shared name on the mailbox and a habit of standing shoulder to shoulder when decisions needed making. The quiet didn't mean empty. One afternoon, Bo was replacing a hinge on the barn door when he heard the sound. Thin, impatient, new. He didn't look up right away. He finished the screw, wiped his hands on his jeans, then turned. Clara stood in the doorway, rocking slightly, the weight on her hip wrapped in a faded blue blanket that used to line the bread basket. One small hand stuck out, clutching nothing, opening and closing like it was learning how the world worked. "Fence done?" she asked. "Mostly," Bo said. That was enough. Later, the sun dropped low and painted the fields the color of old gold. Jed's laughter carried from somewhere near the creek. Rosita's herbs had taken root again, wild and stubborn. The child slept through it all, breathing steady, unaware of how hard the ground beneath them had been fought for. Clara set the empty third frame back on the wall. Finally filled, Bo stood beside her, not touching, just close. The land didn't promise them anything, but it held, and that for now was enough.